Look, as Mavericks fans, there's one thing we've learned over the last year, and it's that we have no idea what to expect from this team. I mean, you go back one calendar year, and there's obviously a lot of injuries you're dealing with to guys like Luka Doncic and Derek Lively, but you know what your team is capable of, so all your projected moves are very marginal. You're looking at something like landing a backup power forward, guys like Obi Toppin, Santi Aldama, or Gary Payton II. And then Nico Harrison trades Luka Doncic in the middle of the night, and Kyrie Irving tears the ACL a month later. We don't know what's happening. We don't even know who's in charge of the team right now. There's obviously the two interim GMs in Michael Finley and Matt Riccardi, but since Nico was fired, Dumont seems to be more involved in the team, and it also seems like Cuban has taken some role in the team again. Not only that, but all the reports about the Mavericks that right now are constantly contradicting each other, and there's no easy answer for what direction the Mavericks are trying to take right now. Look, we don't know what to expect, but what we do know is that this deadline is pivotal in maximizing the first 3 to 5 years of Cooper Flagg's career, and that starts with tanking. I understand that we've had some recent success, and prior to the season, there were people who genuinely believed that we could take on OKC, but if you don't think that tanking is the best option right now, you're delusional. The Mavericks have to tank. This is the last year that we control our own pick, and considering the fact that Lively's already out for the year, and it seems like we're trying to sit out AD and Kyrie, we have to lose games and look at the draft for guys like a Mikal Brown Jr. or a Jenny Contents and pray that we could somehow be blessed 2 drafts in a row and land Darryn Peterson. And so as we decide to tank, we have to look at what's on our roster right now and decide who can stay and who has to go. Some guys we know have to stay: Cooper, Kyrie, Max Christie, hopefully Naji Marshall, I'll get to that in a second, but Ryan Nembhard, Musa Sisse, Dwight Powell, these are guys we know are going to / have to stay. There's also PJ Washington, who honestly, if we could, we'd probably be shopping him to a team like Cleveland, but because of when he signed his extension, he can't be traded this season, and we have to delay his trade talks until the summer. But apart from those guys, we have to look at everyone else, and we have to be like, okay, one, do you fit with what we want to do? Which basically means like, okay, are you young enough to play with Cooper long term, and do you play well next to Cooper? And two, what's the interest surrounding you around the league? Because if you don't fit in with our roster / Cooper, or you aren't even good, then we should get as much value for you as we can possible right now. And that list starts off with Daniel Gafford, who I think of everyone we have will have the most interest around the league right now, as the traditional center who just got a pretty fair long-term extension. We already do have Derek Lively, who hopefully comes back next year fully healthy, fingers crossed. We have Musa Sisse, who's on a 2-way but has earned himself a full contract, and most likely Anthony Davis, so I'll get to in a second, plus Dwight. So considering how you already have 4 centers you're fine with playing, it doesn't make sense to keep Gafford, especially considering what we're paying him and that we're trying to tank. And I know trading him comes with this caveat of those centers, excluding Dwight, Gafford is the least injury risk of them, but that's kind of what you have to do at this point. And there's a ton of teams I've seen listed in potential trades: Celtics, Hawks, Hornets, Pacers, Warriors, Magic. I think a few more. Some deals I've seen thrown out can make sense would be like a Anthony Simon swap from Boston, a Kuminga trade. But my favorite's honestly a swap for Benedict Mathurin, as I'd really like Mathurin next to Max and Cooper. We'll see though. And someone who's received almost as much trade interest as Gafford, if not more, is Naji Marshall. And I do understand, yeah, like this is the piece any contending team would drool over. This young wing right in his prime who can create for himself and others. He's a good defender. He basically does everything you want. He has great energy on the court. Not to mention he makes almost nothing. Some team will overpay for him, and if the deal is good enough, fine, honestly. But I really want to keep him. He's only 28, so yeah, he's kind of old, but also not super old where he'd age out too quick. He's only making $9 million guaranteed for this year and next year, so yeah, I get this is 100% when his value is at its peak, and if you're getting a fleece, you probably have to take that. But that trio of Cooper and Naji and Max has been so fun to watch this year, and they've all taken turns being our best player nightly. So losing Naji would really suck, but if you can get a first for him, or maybe 2, and maybe like a contributing player, you probably have to do it. And now we get to Klay Thompson, and honestly, I don't think he cares if he's traded or not. He's been pretty professional in all his interviews about being fine here, despite the fact that we did sell him on a lie when we were trying to sign him. But this year and next year is probably his last 2 years of being a relevant player in the league, if in the league at all. So I do feel like we owe it to him to try and send him to either contender or back home to Golden State. And if you're doing that Anthony Simon trade from Boston, as I mentioned earlier, it would probably be Klay and Gafford together for him and Kata. You could send him back home to Golden State for Kuminga and reunite the Splash Bros, sell some tickets. I honestly don't want Kuminga, but it seems like we're heading that direction. But honestly, If I'm the general manager of the Detroit Pistons, I'm seeing how lack of secondary creation and shooting has been a reoccurring problem since last year. It's part of why we lost in the playoffs. The Pistons are great. They're my favorite team out of East, but I think like a Karis LeVert and a pick trade for Klay Thompson would make so much sense for both teams. It could help elevate them into being a serious contender. I do want to rapid fire through some really quick. First off, there's D'Lo, who is just trash. I'll put out some clips, but it's pretty obvious that the team, especially Jason Kidd, is frustrated with him. It's why he doesn't play. Over the last 13 games, we've had as many like 7 or 8 players out. And in that stretch, D'Lo has played in 1 game, which was against the Bulls when Jason Kidd got ejected in the first quarter. He'll probably be a throw-in in whatever other trade that we do. Honestly, it doesn't matter if we keep him or not, since he has a team option this summer, so he'll walk no matter what. And nobody is giving up value for him anyways, but I don't know, I just felt like he deserved a mention so I could voice my dislike for him. He just sucks at the game, bro. Second off, there's Caleb, who has been pretty solid recently, and I feel like you could land like a second round pick for him, maybe like a Lonzo plus a second round pick swap type trade. Set him to some contender, and he can play solid, hopefully. Third is Brandon Williams, and I think a lot of people will really want us to keep him since he's been so good this year. Our best point guard for a lot of the season, but the facts are that he is a 6'1", 26-year-old point guard who can't shoot the 3, and that archetype just does not work in the current NBA. Not only that, he's headed into unrestricted free agency in the summer, which, especially since we have Kyrie and Nembhard and whoever we draft with our pick, we have no incentive to re-sign him, so he will walk for nothing. I think that you could land like a second round pick for him and send him to a team needing like backup point guard play for cheap, like New York, Detroit, Cleveland. He could contribute somewhere. Fourth, there's Hardy. I'm just mentioning him because I feel like I have to. I don't really care if he's traded. Contract kind of stinks, but it's not too bad. He'll probably be a throw-in in some other trade. I do want to see him in a new environment though. Hopefully we can send him to like Brooklyn. That would be cool. Now it's time for the thumbnail. The man who, apart from Giannis, has basically been the poster child of trade conversations this year. Big day-to-day Davis. I'm gonna rant for a sec. I'm honestly pretty done. I'm tired of like the constant conflicting reports, the injuries, the drama between Rich Paul and the team and AD, the will they, won't they, and I get part of it is because nobody wants to go with assets for AD if Giannis might decide tomorrow that he wants to trade. Look, if we keep him, fine. Like we can probably get more value for an expiring AD next deadline. The conversation should not be at all related to an extension unless next year he plays like 65 games and plays like his 2020 self. Even then, I'm still would rather trade him and get the most value possible. But look, if a team right now like Atlanta or Toronto puts an offer on the table where you can get some value for him, I think I'm doing it. I get it, right? Like if it's just expiring KP and Kennard, probably don't do that since we don't have to rush a trade. But if you can get some picks or a young guy like Risache, I think it's worth it just to clear your books and remove this lingering question around the team of will AD be healthy? I'd honestly rather be a mid-playoff team next year instead of this faux contender who continually has false beliefs of what they can do just to get disappointed by injuries and whatever. Look, I'm gonna end this off by saying that whatever the Mavericks do this deadline has to be about maximizing Cooper's first few years in the league. There's no need to rush trades. It's what we learned from Luka Doncic era. But I do think that Luka was able to get us to the conference finals by year 4 on honestly a pretty shit team. I mean, Dwight Powell and Boban were our center rotation, and building around Cooper is going to be a lot easier than it was to build around Luka. And I think we're starting off with a way better foundation than what we had in 2019 with guys like Nembhard, Christie, Lively, Musa, plus assets that we can move as we've discussed. That blueprint that OKC, Boston, now San Antonio are popularizing of 5-out rosters with big wings and guards who could all create, defend, and shoot can be built pretty easily around Cooper, and I think Cooper is good enough to get us back to the finals once we've given him a few years to develop in a roster that's built for him. He's this great already on a team that's still built around Luka Doncic, filled with play finishers rather than play creators. And I don't want to say trust the GM because I said that last year and Nico Harrison almost incited riots around the city, but I'm still pretty confident in saying this year that we can build something really special around Cooper sooner than you might think. But that's all I had to say though. Hopefully you took something away from this, and I do really want to get back into uploading consistently, so I'd really appreciate if y'all can show some support by leaving a like or subscribing or a comment. Whatever you can do to help would really help out a lot. Anyways, have a good one.